Justin, what up, man?
Hey guys.
How you doing,
Hey,
brother?
how's it going?
I like
Good.
I,
How you doing?
I like the single
I'm
AirPod
doing pretty good.
look.
Yeah, it's a little late over here, so I'm tired, but I'm ready.
Where are you?
I'm based in Tokyo.
Oh fuck, man! Everybody, I just thank you for joining us. I am such when we were in Asia, I'm just like, no, dude. North American times are just not. They're just not reasonable.
Rough.
They're not reasonable. I think we
That's
actually
rough.
have two guests from like all of our guests today are from the Asian time zone. I think so. Thank you
Yeah.
for your service today.
Of
All right, so
course.
you're the
Yeah,
founder of
glad to be
Open Game Protocol, which I mean, you have a history here, sir. Co-founder of Zynga. I think have been building Web3 for a while. I think with a project called Storyverse. And now with Open Game Protocol, it feels like a lot of the sort of insights from your various stepping stones in your career are coming together. And I think we have questions. We're very curious about this. I know that the trenches are very excited. I was talking to Mercy from ICM.run yesterday. He said he gave you the gears and was very impressed with the answers that you had. And so I think they're very bullish on what you're building. So I'd love to dive into it, but maybe you just want to start off and give us what's the gap in the world that makes you see Open Game Protocol as a necessary part of it?
Yeah, look, I think GameFi has been something that people have been excited about for a long time, and they've kind of run out of energy on, right? I think it feels like we've tried everything, but really, if you step back for a second, we've tried everything in like a very small branch of triable things. And I think this is because there were just huge successes very early on that kept us glued to one part of the tech tree. And instead of exploring a bunch of other obvious stuff, we just explored that for the last 7 years. So I've been involved with advising some of those companies. Like you mentioned, I've been in games for a long time. I'm one of the founders of Zynga. I built Zynga Poker. I led product and growth through the company's IPO and everything else. I'm interested in crypto because I've always been interested in new business models for games and for media. And so that's what we did at Zynga with freemium. Crypto is obviously going to be the next transformation of that. But instead of asking ourselves like, hey, what do we do with virtual goods and virtual currencies from games? Don't we just make those cryptocurrencies and NFTs? We just stepped back and said, like, what are the problems the game developers have? What are the problems the players have? And what are the problems the traders have? And let's actually see if we can solve all of these in a way that they're more satisfied with than some of the current ecosystems. So what we do simply is we make it very easy to reward any token on Solana with our SDK inside of your game. And it sounds like that should be really easy, but it actually isn't. Like if you just want to go make a game that rewards GigaChad for playing the game right now, that's actually quite a long process. And most Web2 game devs have no smart contract skills, right? So there have been middleware layers before. So we didn't stop there. That's not really the key idea to this. The bigger idea is that actually each of these tokens could have its own game ecosystem. And a lot of them have tons of content on the timeline. They have communities that want to support the content. They want more catalysts for the token to drive adoption, to drive demand and buy pressure on the token. So what we did is solve this problem by basically creating a new game ecosystem token that those communities can launch for each existing token. So the way that you can think of it is the Fartcoin community gets together, they stake their Fartcoin. If enough of them stake their Fartcoin, a Fartcoin game coin launches. This game coin powers rewards for unlimited numbers of Fartcoin games. So what's interesting from a trader's perspective is now you can go and trade all these different game coins associated with many different tokens that you've heard of, like Fartcoin. But from the player's perspective, this allows us to go put a play button in our partners that we're working with, like wallets, where now you can go look at the Fartcoin chart and tap a play button and actually get Fartcoin games where you earn Fartcoin. This is one of those things that's almost so obvious that once we built it, we're like, okay, why hasn't this existed before, right? Everything in crypto revolves around tokens. There's been all these verbs that people have built. Uniswap built the sort of swap verb. Like we're trying to go build the play verb.
Can you put a finer point on why you need a Fartcoin derivative game coin to do this versus just using the actual token?
Yeah. So the trick here is like, wouldn't it be nice if the Fartcoin community got together and decided to fund a bunch of Fartcoin games? But there needs to be an incentive, right? So this is a way of basically capital formation around this idea, this concept. And then what we do is make sure that the token actually rewards the participants that need to go and create the content or distribute the content, the games, so that it actually becomes true. So I like to call this hyperstitious. It's a flywheel like Bitcoin, right? The bigger the price of Bitcoin gets, the more the miners earn, the more people are going to build FPGAs, the more people are going to go find unique sources of electricity, the more the ecosystem develops, the more the price becomes true because we just got all this infra and ecosystem that's attached to the new price. I like to think of these tokens as like a voting machine. So if someone thinks Fartcoin games are going to be big and everyone starts piling into that, the money starts becoming available to game developers to reward them for building Fartcoin games and to reward the players and the distributors for distributing them. This is basically the idea is like the more people believe in it, the more it becomes true.
Okay, so I would love to understand the mechanism a little bit more and maybe where value and fees flow through. So I understand, yeah, let's use 11 a.m., our lovely 11 a.m. token. We think there could be just a huge gaming ecosystem emerging here. I'm an 11 a.m. whale. Thank you very much. I'm going to come in and stake that token. Is it just my belief that that more attention on that token is going to drive the price up, or can you help me understand the economic model that goes in between Visa staking and then how game players and developers use it?
Right. So you have your 11 a.m. token. You and some other people from the community are excited about having a game ecosystem. You stake your 11 a.m. token. You hit a threshold. The 11 a.m. game coin launches. This game coin, the trading fees that are being collected are actually.
Okay, how does that 11 a.m. game coin launch? Where's the capital coming from for the token pair? Where is it?
Yeah, it's a brand new bonding curve launch. So this is like a public sale on a bonding curve, letting everybody get in at an earlier price. But the people who stake their token get 20% of the game coin for free. So that's kind of the reward for being involved with voting this thing into an existence. And the cool thing is like there's 25% of the token supply set aside for these game rewards, but also the trading fees from the token actually go back to replenish this reward pool. So the goal is to maintain an endless reward pool for the game developers, for the distributors like the wallets who put in a play button, and for the players who play the games and can actually have some rewards. Now, the players, they don't want 11 a.m. game coin. They want 11 a.m. coin. That's what they've heard of. They want Fartcoin. They don't want Fartcoin game coin, right? So actually, the swaps are happening automatically to go and get the rewards, which puts buy pressure on the original token and creates new holders for the token without anybody from the original token community fronting the costs, right? This is like the people's belief in the game ecosystem is what funds the games.
Okay, so this is a launch pad opportunity at a sort of a different layer and in a different context. And I think that one of your insights here is that the distribution through aligned partnerships with like wallets, along with the communities themselves, kind of create an attention base and an awareness base that can, help this breakout.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that it's a recognition that traders want to own assets where there are like bullish future catalysts, right? So what's nice about owning a game coin ecosystem coin is that as Fartcoin gets more games, there's reasons to believe that maybe the price will change, right? People are looking for volatility. They're looking for a narrative that doesn't exist with a single game coin. It doesn't exist with a streamer coin where it's attached to one streamer. It does exist when we can create an ecosystem coin like this. So you have a built-in community that wants to support the coin, and you have an SDK that makes it so easy for people to develop games that any of those community participants can actually just say, hey, I think this game would be great. Let's convince this developer to add this SDK. And it's like a 1 hour task or something. So this is, rather than like a BD team and an army with $5 or $10 million sort of incentive to go and get AAA games in, what we're trying to do is like the lightweight, community-owned, bottoms-up version, where it's so easy to do this that communities can do it with their own efforts.
So you've been explicit about, I think, game coins not being like integrated into the gameplay and really just being these rewards tokens. Can you talk more about, I guess, why that thesis and how I would ultimately get rewarded for playing a game?
Yeah. So the thing here is like, actually, like if you spend a lot of time in the game space, what you'll notice is that everyone talks about Apple. They take 30% of payments, right? So people are talking about how to get fees down, and that's kind of one of like again, back to the skeuomorphic idea of like we have virtual currencies, let's make them cryptocurrencies. We have NFTs, virtual goods, let's make them NFTs. We have IAPs, let's make them crypto purchases. Like we're kind of going to ask ourselves the question from the top way of looking at it, which is like, hey, what are the biggest companies in games? It's AppLovin. They're a $150 billion company. So my last game company was the biggest mobile game company in the world. It was a $15 billion company. AppLovin is a $150 billion company, and it's not the biggest mobile game advertiser. So it tells you that distribution is very valuable, right? Of the top like $1 trillion companies that exist, NVIDIA is one of the only ones that isn't an advertising company, and all the rest of them, huge chunks of the revenue come from mobile games. They spend $65 billion a year. So the answer for who are the downstream buyers of these tokens, why is this not just a sort of degen only Ponzi, is that actually game companies will use this for distribution. So as the network grows for distribution for each of these tokens, this is a very compelling channel, a new channel for games and for their marketers. So it could be something where right now they spend $3 per user on an ad network, and they want to get users for their game. And now they can buy a game coin, stake it against their own game to increase the reward pool on their game and the distribution their game gets, and earn a yield while they're actually getting new users for their game. And we don't take any cut of IPs, and we don't take any cut of advertising. So they're keeping their existing revenue channels. We're giving them a new revenue channel where they're earning tokens for being associated with this game ecosystem, and we're giving them users. So the appeal to the game companies as we get to scale here is like, it's very clear, and there's 65 billion spent on that every year. So our thinking is like, if you look at games as a whole, people talk about the 30% that Apple makes, but what they don't talk about is the 70 cents on a dollar that Facebook makes, because everybody's distributing their games through Facebook. So if Apple lowers their take rate to 10%, then Facebook will take 90 cents on a dollar, because game companies are very hungry for distribution. They're going to respend all their cash into distribution. So the long-term play here, the biggest opportunity is to basically be the place where they can buy the best distribution.
Okay, so obviously in a sort of a scaled state, that argument really stands, but getting to that level becomes the big challenge. Distribution actually requires distribution. So, and it seems to me like the ability to convince great games to go and integrate this is probably going to be dependent on you proving out the model somewhere else. So I guess I'm really curious how you go and bootstrap the initial interest and network effects here to the scale where you're actually having those effective conversations.
Yeah, this is a multi-sided marketplace, and it's not for the faint of heart. I wouldn't, if we weren't in games, I wouldn't do this one. It's going to be pretty hard. So I think what's interesting about this is that we have a way of solving the cold start problem in a few different ways. So one is like, this is the ultimate AI play. And what I mean by that is that it's now possible for people to create long tail content for these long tail tokens. And that wasn't possible a year ago. And next year, we'll probably go from impressive vibe coded games to really, really impressive vibe coded games, like the stuff that we're seeing with video recently. I'm expecting that's where games are going to be in probably 6 months or so. And this will be the type of protocol that can absorb this content that we're getting and organize it in interesting ways that create economic value. Now, like, how do you add value for the first game that shows up when there are no other games? Keep in mind, they get token rewards. So as long as traders launch one of these game coins and believe in the game coin, there will be rewards for the person who makes the first game for that token. They will actually just start earning crypto. And so even if there are no distributors that are distributing this long tail token, that person's probably happy to just be receiving what is effectively like a creator fee for having contributed to that ecosystem. And so for a lot of indie game developers, you hear the big numbers because games make so much money as a space, like 100 billion in mobile games. The thing is, like, a lot of developers, most of them, the vast majority, are struggling, right? And it's very much a scale game. And so there are a lot of companies for which these creator fees would be really meaningful. And I think that's a really good way to get the initial support going for like communities backing games that are built for Fartcoin, right? That they're excited to promote. And then eventually you get to the scale that lets you really push this to mobile game companies, where this is like an alternative distribution channel. But we actually think it has legs in the beginning, just as we think about it like the layers of the onion. You think about Bitcoin, it's like the first people to buy Bitcoin, it was a libertarian protest vote, right? Some of them will say they were investing, but it was a libertarian emotional protest vote. And then you go out and out and out and out. Right. And then drugs was second. That's the second layer of the onion was drugs.
Okay, fair.
Yeah. I'm talking about before the drugs, just like, you were in the wrong internet forum at the wrong time and you were angry at the government. Okay. But like eventually it's nation states, right? And then you just keep getting to other layers of the onion. Okay. So when I talk about like the 65 billion in mobile games, like that's the final layer of the onion, but there are a lot of interesting ones from here to there, like Web3 game companies that we've talked to about partnering with this. They really get it. They're probably going to start deploying this like right away. I mean, I don't need to convince them that this is an effective way to do marketing. And maybe some of the token teams that may want their community to launch a game coin will be thinking about how they spend their treasury, because this could end up being a very interesting way to market a token. I mean, right now, how many ways do you have to go spend money to market a token where you're getting interesting new holders and you're onboarding them in a way that's actually like very branded, and you can do it for this cheaply? They could earn a yield on their treasury and by staking against these games, control the publishing and get their token in more people's hands.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the speculative nature if I just put this in like more of a launchpad bucket, like the early trader speculation on these tokens is probably also part of like the initial kickoff loop, for better or for worse. So sort of, yeah, interesting to push it off to that level. So I know that you guys have a token planned, and so I'm interested in how you are thinking about that, how you're launching it, and then also how value flows back to OG protocol out of this network that you're building.
Sure. Yeah, we're thinking about it carefully. I mean, we don't have any announcements to make on it yet, but we're excited. We want the whole point of the reason I'm building this is, I mean, not to go through all the trauma that I've lived through, but like we went through so many battles with Apple and with Facebook, and what I realized was that, like, Tim Sweeney is now fighting Apple very publicly, and the Web2 company that I started 5 years ago has also been a part of the CAF, the Coalition for App Fairness. Like, this is something near and dear to my heart. But what I realize is that all of these platforms operate the same way, because they get into a certain position of power and they behave a certain way. And so, like, what I like to say is we don't need to swap one Tim for another. We don't need Tim Cook to become Tim Sweeney. It makes no difference. Like, as long as we have distribution controlled by some company like this, we're in the same situation. 30%, 10%, 5% makes no difference. So what we're trying to do is like build an off-ramp that's community owned. You solve the problem the same way Bitcoin solved fiat, was not by making a better fiat. They didn't say they're going to make the fiat of crypto, or the Steam of Web3. Like let's go build the crypto native distribution layer that uses all the resources we already have. So like, let's focus on wallets, let's focus on CoinMarketCap, these things. The token, the OG token, becomes a way for the broader ecosystem to participate in a way where they might not want exposure through game coins, right? So there are a lot of interesting ways that we're considering right now, and just like the rollout, we just have nothing to share in terms of timing yet.
Sorry, go for it.
I'm curious how you guys are kind of conceptualizing the opportunity of financialized gaming or GameFi, or whatever you want to kind of call this category. Obviously, you're early to social gaming, which ended up being very right and is like, a huge percentage of the gaming industry today. Like, do you see a similar size opportunity for kind of financial crypto native gaming?
Yeah, I do. And I'm particularly excited about, I know that a lot of people are moving toward like degen gaming, or there's money that goes into a smart contract and then rewards come out, and it's like very conservative sort of lockdown approach. In part, that's because they're funding their own rewards, right? So what's interesting about this, like I'll give you, like, we went through a lot to get to this. We've been building crypto for the last few years. But one of the things that like really made us think like this has to exist is when we saw Pump.Fun on $1 billion ARR, it was like almost a year ago. And I just asked myself, like, what if half of that went toward some sort of ecosystem where the flywheel was actually making something take shape? And I thought about, like, yeah, you could have 100 million go to these game devs, or 200 million, and then you start doing the math and you realize like you could actually build something that gets really competitive and interesting at scale pretty quickly. And I'm not saying we're going to get to the scale of Pump.Fun that quickly, but what I am saying is, like, I don't like to call it a launchpad, because like this launchpad isn't interesting when I remove all the other pieces from it. It's just the best mechanism to align capital formation around ideas that then make these things go and happen, right? And so we're just creating a marketplace for, like, in a price and a bounty for these things to exist, and we just think it's the best way to do it.
Yeah, I'm just a reductive type of guy here who thinks that there's just a couple business models that really work in crypto, and I get to bucket you into one of those. Justin, we're gonna have to let you go here, and appreciate your time. I'm very curious about how you plan on launching the token and how you think about sort of the value flowing through the network. I know you're being coy with it right now, which I think I'll take as wanting to be very thoughtful about the approach here. I also know you're out here doing a bunch of press talking about it quite a bit, but I think this is the one piece that, for me, as somebody who likes to buy tokens early, has a big open question around. Yeah. So we'd love to have you reach out to us when you guys are ready to share, so we can maybe dive in a little bit deeper to the economics.
I think you may be able to check out the launch very, very soon. The protocol token will come later, but yeah, I think it'll be very, very soon.
All right. Well, we look forward to seeing that. Justin, thanks for staying up late for us. We wish you all the best as you navigate the fun dynamics of bringing a token to market in Q4, baby. Q4.
All right, guys. Yeah, have a good one.
Peace, man.
That's soon. Bye.